In today's video, we have some NHL trade talk to discuss involving around the St. Louis Blues, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Anaheim Ducks, as well as another ridiculous rumor of William Nylander that was discussed on TSN. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we have some NHL trade talk, which is different from trade rumors. This is mainly just a couple of articles I've come across, mainly from Jeremy Rutherford, who covers the St. Louis Blues quite closely, in the latest 31 Thoughts column by Elliotte Friedman, NHL Insider, kind of talking about some of these teams and potential moves they might make. They don't necessarily have any rumors or discussions that have been linked with other teams, but they're certainly worth discussing here because some of it might be fairly significant. Now let's get started with the St. Louis Blues. Now we know this is a team that was kind of reconstructed a lot during the offseason. General Manager Doug Armstrong made several moves, including a big trade for Ryan O'Reilly and several notable signings to try to improve this team and take them back to the playoffs and take some major steps forward. Really, the St. Louis Blues has been a team really for quite a long stretch of time that has kind of been hovering on mediocrity, having pretty good regular seasons, but never really getting a whole lot done in the playoffs. I mean, this team has had a lot of good players over the years, a lot of solid seasons, and just can't seem to get over that hump. Last year, they fell out of playoff contention and missed the playoffs here by one measly point on the final day of the season. So certainly after the slow start that the St. Louis Blues have had and find themselves near the basement of the Western Conference and in the bottom of the Central Division, which is a very tough division as it is, so to climb up their way up those standings is not going to be an easy task. We've now seen them dismiss their coach in Mike Yeo and assistant coach Craig Berube take over. Now some of the rumors and talk around this team are not just around potential deals they might make, but also around a potential new head coach. Now at this point, Craig Berube is the interim head coach, and there's really no exact timeline on how long that's going to be. Of course, the St. Louis Blues are going to take their time here and find their right man, and while they're going through exploring external candidates, they very well might end up deciding that Berube is the right guy for the job, depending on how things go here over the short term while they're kind of going through that process. Now, General Manager Doug Armstrong did mention that he's looking at candidates already, kind of exploring who might be available. They even indicated they might be looking at candidates even over in Europe. So there's certainly some potential NHL coaches that are over there that have kind of been rumored in the past as well. So he's certainly not limiting his search to any particular area. There's been some talk about the Blues being interested in Joel Quenneville. Of course, General Manager Doug Armstrong wouldn't comment specifically on any particular guy. I mean, when he had his press conference, he said, I'm not talking about any particular coach. I'm not going to name drop anybody here. Obviously, it's a little premature for that, but there is obviously a link between the Blues and Quenneville, where he coached there before, and they're a team that some believe he might consider going to because there's a lot of good pieces there, and with the right leadership, they could certainly get improved and kind of get themselves back in contention. So certainly Quenneville's a name to keep your eye on, but there's certainly no guarantees that's going to happen by any means, and there's certainly a lot of speculation on how they might approach this coaching position here longer term. Either way here, many people feel that this Blues team really is going to need another trade or two to kind of shake things up to really have a better opportunity at moving forward. During his press conference discussing the firing of Mike Yeo, Armstrong did mention as well that over the short term, if things don't improve here, that he was kind of consider making some deals and might have to attack the core of the team and move out a key piece or two in order to really shake things up. I mean, there's some speculation on who that might be. I mean, obviously, Captain Alex Pietrangelo is certainly a guy that's been mentioned before. He's got 2 years left on his contract, including this year, at a pretty reasonable cap hit. I'm sure he'd be attractive to many. The leadership of this team has certainly come into question, which is justifiably so, considering the results. We've also seen other guys' names mentioned, like a Braden Shen or an Alex Steen. Of course, Alex Steen has a no trade clause. It's going to prove difficult to move him. There is some concerns that Shen's contract might very well, with their current salary cap situation, prove to be difficult to get him signed anyway. He had a big year last year, his first year with the Blues. He's having a decent season so far. So with the amount of money he might command on his next contract, there's some concern they might look to move him out over that potential of having a difficult time signing him later. Now, of course, there's other guys too. There was some mention in Elliotte Friedman's 31 Thoughts column over a little bit of frustration around Tarasenko, but really it doesn't seem to indicate that there's anything close that they would consider moving him at all. But I guess many within the Blues organization kind of feel like he should be an even bigger star and putting up even better totals than he has in the past. But really, I mean, he's been a pretty solid 35 to 40 plus goal scorer over his career. He's still relatively young. He's got a pretty good contract. I certainly would not move Tarasenko, and I certainly would not really be too frustrated with his play because I think he's done relatively well, and he seems to be doing well with Ryan O'Reilly as being his center iceman so far this season. So, I mean, around their defense and goaltending is certainly where a lot of their big questions lie. I mean, Jake Allen has had another inconsistent start to his season. He has a pretty decent contract, around $4.5 million, with another couple of years left on that. So there was some talk that they very well could look to move him. If they move Jake Allen, they're likely going to need a goaltender coming back in return. I know they have Chad Johnson, but he's certainly not a long-term solution, and he is capable of playing a little more than some backups. He's done it before and can give it results. They do have, goaltender Philly Husso in the minors as well, who, they very well at some point here, instead of making a trade for a goalie, could bring him up and give him a chance and see how that goes before they really consider making a trade. But obviously Jake Allen's name has been brought up, and obviously that defense has not played the greatest this season. And really, if you take a look at some of their older guys like Jay Bouwmeester, Carl Gunnarsson, I mean, they're not really going to bring back anything of any value. So is there really any much point in trading those guys? It's, probably not. So, I mean, one name that's come up back there that might be still young enough with enough value would be like a Jordan Schmaltz. That's certainly a possibility as well. So there's certainly all kinds of talk around this Blues team that Doug Armstrong's going to have to continue, make another move or two here to kind of shake things up. And there's certainly a lot of talk and interesting speculation about who they might try to hire as their next head coach. I think if they have the opportunity to grab a guy like a Joel Quenneville or maybe even Alain Vigneault, that certainly very well might be the best move. I think for a large part of the issue here was around some of the systems and the coaching staff. So I do think with the right guidance and the right leadership here, this team could kind of be given a shot in the arm and kind of get things turned around with a lot of what they have in place here, because I do like their roster. So time will tell here on the Blues and what kind of moves Doug Armstrong continues to make to try to shake things up. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Doug Armstrong should do to kind of shake this roster up? Or do you think a change in coaching is going to be enough to kind of get this team moving here in the right direction? Now, as I mentioned as well, there's some connection here between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Anaheim Ducks, which came up through Elliotte Friedman's 31 Thoughts column. It was highly speculated here that the Pittsburgh Penguins had a lot of interest in Ducks defenseman Brandon Montour. Now, of course, no deal has been made, and we don't really have any firm rumors to suggest they're even having that discussion. It just indicates that there's interest. So obviously, there's always interest in a lot of key players around the league, but Brandon Montour certainly would be a guy I think that would be a big help to the Penguins' defense core. And as we know, the Penguins have also been looking to kind of shake things up at the forward position as well, given how their season has gone. They've already made one minor deal with Hagelin for Pearson, and another guy on the Ducks that would make a lot of sense for the Penguins without having taking back a big contract or giving him a little flexibility would be Jakob Silfverberg. Now, Silfverberg's a pending UFA. He's been a pretty solid forward through his NHL career. Pretty solid 40-plus point guy. Anywhere, I think his career high is around 49 or 50 points. Can be counted on for about 20 goals. So imagine putting him with some of those top guns with the Penguins. I do think there's certainly something that would say that might be a good fit. Now, as far as what it would take to obtain him, I don't think the Ducks they're not really in a position to take on a whole lot of contracts. The Ducks are up against the cap, and that might be another reason they might be willing to do this, because it's already been discussed before. Early in the season, we mentioned how the fact that Silfverberg might not kind of fit into their longer-term plans. Not that they don't like the player, but they might not really be able to afford to re-sign him. And throw in a guy like Montour here is only locked up for the next couple of years as well. They've already got other defensemen like Fowler and Lindholm and Manson locked up for many more years beyond that. He might prove difficult to sign as well, given where things are at with the salary cap. I mean, the Ducks have a lot of longer-term deals on some older guys like Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Ryan Kessler, even Adam Henrique's got a new deal that kicked in here as well. You get John Gibson, the extension that kicks in next season, plus the 3D that we mentioned as well. They do have a few other forwards locked up for the next 2 or 3 years on pretty decent deals like Raquel and Kasha and Richie. Plus, they have a lot of youth in their minor league system that's working their way up to be regular NHLers too. So, kind of makes sense that Silfverberg might be the odd man out, and I do think that he would be an excellent fit with the Penguins. You throw in their interest of Brandon Montour, and maybe we could see a potentially bigger deal here between the two sides. I mean, we've already discussed the Penguins here on a few other occasions. where they have some guys that likely would be considered to be moved by Jim Rutherford. You throw in a guy maybe like a Daniel Sprong, who might be a young, attractive prospect for the Ducks to give a shot to. Maybe even a Brian Rust, Riley Sheehan. You throw in maybe an Olli Mata on defense, or I mean, we even mentioned the possibility of Brian Dumoulin as well. We know that Rutherford is not afraid to make big moves, and whatever he sees an opportunity to make an upgrade, if the price is right and it makes sense, then it certainly would be something he would consider. I mean, both of those players on the Ducks are not overly old. I think Montour is around 24. I think Silverberg is 27 or 28. So they're certainly still in their prime years. They have decent contracts for at least for this year, short term. They can decide how they can proceed longer term. And if they can do that and take advantage of the Ducks salary cap situation here and give back more futures, I do think that would be an excellent move here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So certainly something to keep your eyes on. As we've talked about before here in the last few days or last week or so, Rutherford is likely having tons of conversations, working the phones hard. And even though they came back with a big win the other night here, Crosby returning, they had a big 5-0 win. I don't see them stopping there. They're likely going to continue to see what else is out there for them to make their push back, not only back to the playoffs, but be considered a contender again as well. But last but not least here, I just want to discuss a quick little trade discussion that was going on TSN Radio with Craig Button, Mike Johnson, Andrew Petrillo, talking about the William Nylander situation, which is obviously the big hot topic around the NHL right now, talking about should they consider a trade for Brandon Saad, which is the Chicago Blackhawks. And I can't believe that this was even brought up. I mean, to be honest, I don't think Chicago is in any kind of position to be able to give Nylander the contract he wants. So there's that for starters. I mean, I realize contract for Saad would be going out. However, you throw in the fact that Nylander would be signed much longer, and I really don't see Brandon Saad as being equal value at all to William Nylander. Look at the fact that William Nylander is a fair bit younger than Saad. He's already, in my opinion, I think he'd be a better player now, not only in the future. Nylander's likely only going to continue to get better. And with Saad likely, kind of getting to that latter part where he's going to start to have even further decline, it just doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm not sure if any of you caught that out there through TSN, the whole Chicago-Toronto talk they were having. Should they consider a Saad for Nylander swap? But I just thought it was another, crazy, ridiculous talk around Nylander and potential trade destinations and returns. Really doesn't make any sense here. I really think, personally, as we approach the December 1st deadline for Nylander to sign, keep in mind here that if he signs late into the season, which obviously we are at now, it's just going to help the Maple Leafs salary cap situation that much further longer term, because his cap hit for this season would go up, which therefore reduces the cap hit for future years. So there's really a lot of benefits to the Leafs for, dragging this on and making it sign. Now, not to say that they're doing any of this intentionally. I don't think that's the case. But there's still a lot of long-term potential benefits if they are able to get him signed. So you can bet your money that they're going to be trying everything in their power to get him signed back in their lineup on Austin Matthews' wing here. And if the right trade is not out there, they're not going to make that deal. So I think the odds are greater that he either signs or ends up sitting out. But not to say a trade couldn't happen. I think it could. I think the Leafs are exploring it. I think the Leafs need to do that to do their due diligence. But at this point, I've yet to see a good trade offer that makes total sense that they should definitely proceed with. So I guess we'll see here. We're kind of running out of time. So if you caught any of that Nylander talk about the trade for Saad, certainly, I don't know, I'd love to hear what you think. In my opinion, it's pretty ridiculous. And I think Kyle Dubas would be getting that call from Chicago offering Saad for Nylander. He'd be like, yeah, okay, bye. No, not interested. So, obviously that's not going to happen. I can't see it at all. So let me know your thoughts on that below, and we'll continue that conversation in the comment section. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up before you leave as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.